For any country basically to become a developed country, the most important pillar or backbone of it would be education. If the education is been provided in a right manner, that is what I said, just not right to education, providing them right education, which is a blend of everything, the industry, the society and all that, and that is what is happening because of the new education policy. In the state of Maharashtra, the implementation has begun recently, but in the years to come, I can see because these things have started happening. The industry, I can see an increased footprint of the industry people on the campus. So it is a win-win situation for both the academics as well as the industries. It would not be very far of a time to get India converted into a developed country sort of.
Welcome to the Viksit Maharashtra, Viksit Bharat podcast. Today, we're honored to host Dr. N.R. Karmalkar, Vice Chancellor of Pune University. An innovative leader in education, our guest has played a pivotal role in elevating academic standards and creating a dynamic learning environment. We are thrilled to hear his thoughts on higher education in India, the challenges and opportunities within Maharashtra, and how education can empower future generations. Let's dive into this insightful discussion. Welcome to our podcast, sir.
Thank you.
So my first question to you will be, what is your vision for Pune University in shaping higher education in India?
Following the new education policy which came into existence in 2020, of course, the implementation in the state of Maharashtra began a little late because in state, the education is in the state's concurrent list, and therefore it all depends upon the state government. And incidentally, although it was declared in 2020. Immediately we had the COVID sort of a situation, and subsequent to that, obviously the government of Maharashtra, the then government of Maharashtra, took some little initiatives, sort of like they formulated some committees just to study the entire policy. But in 2022, when there was a switch or changeover in the government, the then governor, basically, Bhagat Singh Koshyari, he called me and he asked me that we have to implement the new education policy in the state of Maharashtra, and I would like to actually ask you to lead this particular activity. So he formulated a steering committee. He made me a chairman of that committee, and then we started discussing, deliberating with all stakeholders, including the parents, the student community, the principals, the vice chancellor, the deans, every one of them, in fact. And then we rolled out, we experimented it last year, that is 2023. As an experiment, it was limited only to the autonomous colleges. Roughly around 150 odd colleges we chose, and which included basically the traditional as well as the professional, like providing engineering education as such. And then there we started implementing it. So there were a couple of problems, sort of like the reason being basically we are suddenly switching over to multidisciplinary kind of education. The previous policy basically was a very narrow kind of approach. You have so many walls created. So once you enter into one particular room or one particular sort of arena, you are not entitled to look beyond that particular discipline as such. So many disciplines. I remember when I was vice chancellor, there were 13 faculties sort of, which narrowed down to 4. And the new education policy basically provides you how many, wherein basically all these walls which were created now actually are getting collapsed sort of. So a student is a free bird. He's been given that kind of a choice, like it's completely a flexible kind of a system. So when you're doing commerce and at the same time you have basically some interest, maybe in performing arts, maybe doing something in arts, social sciences, or maybe something altogether different kind of a area, you can do that. So as per the policy, the major and minor, these are the two verticals that actually gives you plenty of flexibility in choosing the major. Maybe I can choose physics as a major, But at the same time, minor can be anything belonging to any other discipline. It can be from commerce, it can be from economics, it can be performing arts, maybe dance. Even that is also feasible. So that kind of a flexibility has been provided. And the best part of this, like after implementing it in 2023, we recently had a review of what has been happening and how the students are progressing. I'm so happy. Of course, there are going to be little challenges with respect to basically the faculty, because what has happened because of this kind of a flexibility, the duration has increased. Student has to come as well as the faculty has to come to the campus 7:30 in the morning, and student leave by 7:30 in the evening because of the space crunch, in fact. And therefore, the teacher community is a little hesitant too, but the student community, especially, I can tell you, they are extremely happy. That when I looked at basically their own sort of a progress, they are doing good in the subject they were liking or they were interested in. So that flexibility has been provided. Apart from that, there are many more verticals. During the course of discussion, we'll touch upon all those verticals later on. Yeah.
Sir, since Maharashtra is a leading state in education in India, how do you see the state align its policies with the NEP's vision? And particularly if we talk about the focus on building a developed India by 2047, the vision of Viksit Bharat.
In fact, I would say, although we started late in the state of Maharashtra, but meticulously and following a proper methodology, we adopted that policy. So initially, as an experiment, limited to 150 odd colleges. From this academic year, it is pan Maharashtra. And the government is also very supportive. And since we had lots of deliberation discussions, we had many workshops, and because of which the groundwork was done, sort of. Both the teaching community as well as the management of various different institutes, they were, I would say, all the time supported. Like they forthcoming kind of, you can call them, and they supported the policy. And because of which, perhaps you can say, this is the only state in its true spirit the policy is getting implemented. So what do you mean by that? So there are 6 to 7 verticals, which include basically skilling, one of the important component. Second one is the on-job training. Third, perhaps, is the internship. Then fourth and most important is IKS, Indian Knowledge System. So basically, it's a kind of a blend of the old knowledge with the contemporary. So that kind of basically verticals were created, or rather are there in the new education policy. And in true spirit, we are actually trying to connect them with your education. So we have created, like at the central part, basically you have what is called as a Swayam.
Yeah.
In the state of Maharashtra, basically what we thought of, we can create our own system. We call it the Mahaswayam.
Okay.
Yeah. So because 30% of your education can be digital or in an online mode, sort of. So content creation has been the priority, a good quality content, sort of. Incidentally, when I was heading the Pune University as a Vice Chancellor, that time we had created a platform that's called a Degree Plus. So Degree Plus basically means whatever is not part of your syllabus, but the things after studying can enhance your credentials, those things were included on Degree Plus. Those were online content. So initially, actually, we outsourced it. Like we brought content from, say, Harvard Business School, or Simply Learn, or maybe Ikida, or maybe so many, Coursera, all those kind of courses. And some courses we started creating on our own.
So, sir, this is different from, this approach is different from the Swayam portal.
Is actually replication of Swayam. Swayam basically, what generally the problem with the Swayam is, the timetable many times doesn't match.
Okay.
And because of which my results get delayed. Like if some student is adopting that particular thing, so I am at the national level, what generally happens, their basically examination, that calendar, we are actually working it out. We constantly are in touch with the University Grant Commission and negotiating with them basically so that it can be streamlined. But in the meantime, we thought like our own teachers also should get promoted to, or rather get exposed to online education and creation of a good e-content also. Incidentally, Pune University is blessed with what is called the EMRC, Education Multimedia Research Center. So that has been basically in existence for last 25-30 years. So there we actually were producing the content. I'm making use of that. I actually started promoting our own teachers because generally you are comfortable with your own teacher, your own community. And therefore, if you say, see that particular face, obviously it makes a difference sort of. And therefore, we started creating content. Then especially, as I mentioned about the IKS, Indian Knowledge System, no one knew like what is to be included. There are not many books. One particular book that has been brought out by the technical education, that's by Mahadevan. AICT actually had supported that this thing. And leaving aside that particular book, there's nothing actually. So we had to actually take it. We were forced to take a deep dive and understand about the IKS and what different parts needs to be included. So for that purpose, initially what we thought of, let's create an online content of 30 hours so that both the teachers as well as the student community gets comfortable with it. And later on, we can expand it further. And that's how the concept of Mahaswayam came into existence. So government of Maharashtra has supported that. And then the Pune University, Mumbai University, generally the university which have A+ grade are only entitled to go for online education. So they are creating that kind of thing. But this new education policy to a great extent has taught the teaching community as well as overall the education diaspora, I would call them like, to look beyond their syllabus, to start this, they have started looking into the society. What are the relevant issues? What are the problems the society is facing? And those problems, whether they are getting reflected in the curriculum while doing research also, the kind of research that you're doing is not happening in isolation, but actually somewhere there is a resolve to basically take up a problem of society and start finding solution for it. And then all these days, what had happened, industry was kept virtually aside. It wasn't a part of education system as such. Now because the internship program, because of the on-job training program, we have to have a sort of a golden handshake with the industry community. Of course, I made some sort of efforts. We have created what is called a SPPU Research Park Foundation to promote entrepreneurship, to promote startup and all that. So the industry started getting into. We have a center, this is called a center for Industry 4.0. And Pune being basically, I would call a auto hub. So we have many basically industries related to manufacturing of various different vehicles sort of, right from Mercedes to, I can go on naming Mahindra and so many of them. So they started coming onto the campus. And then with this particular Industry 4.0, they come up with their own problems. My student actually, to a great extent, work for those to provide the solution to those problems. So it's a win-win situation for both the industry as well as the student community, but they're getting direct exposure. They're understanding what are the problems. So beside basically the vehicular manufacturing, there are other industries also. So the footprint of the industry people on the campus has increased considerably. This is, I think, something very phenomenal that has happened because of the new education policy. So there are very many good things basically to a great extent are included in the policy, and because of the proper implementation in its spirit, we could actually engage so many other partners, you can call them, collaborate with even private universities. Pune is basically, I would call like, it's a seat of educational excellence sort of. We are roughly in Pune city itself, barring the Pune University, which is a public state university, there are 9 other private universities.
Since you're talking about private universities, in India, we have seen a significant growth in the number of private universities. So how do you see this impacting the accessibility to quality higher education?
the good thing about the private universities, because since they are self-supported, self-aided, where the fees are going to be little on a higher side, the infrastructure they provide is better. Even the credential of the teaching community is also good out there. And therefore, obviously, I would quality-wise better education or best education is provided in the private universities as such. And accessibility as such, yes, although they are private, but they are governed by all the norms and regulations or regulatory bodies like University Grant Commission, AICT and all. So they have to follow those norms. So whether a disabled student or whether coming from a particular community, a tribal, so those kind of reservations are the thing they follow, and the accessibility is not at all issue with neither with the state university nor with the private university also. So they are quite accessible as such. Affordability, I would say, yeah, a particular class can only afford that. But for the remaining class, obviously, some kind of I would say concessions are provided in fees and other things. So it's not at all an issue. And then all these days, it wasn't like we never used to actually look at them sort of, the public state university. But now the dialogue has begun. We work together. There are like Flame University, the NEP workshops we are organized. Actually, we are located. The location was the Flame University. Symbiosis also came forward. D.Y. Patil University, another university. So, one good thing about basically why in the first place so many new universities are coming, because there is a flexibility that is being provided. Okay, because the NEP speaks about a light but tight regulation. So they have opened up. Like you can have your own university, and you can experiment. You can have your own experiment perform in your own this thing, and that perhaps is the people are cashing on. And therefore some of the best kind of a courses like liberal arts, which actually began mostly in the private universities. You won't find liberal arts happening in any of the public state universities as such. We, after looking at them, we thought of like we should provide this to an opportunity to our student also. So we started with that program. But I think some of the very innovative kind of a program they are coming up with, because of the good infrastructure and good talented teachers they have. And but now there is kind of a collaboration happening between private as well as public state universities.
So, since you talked about the Indian knowledge system, how important was this step to essentially go back to this system? And how do you see this has impacted overall learning? Because people have been skeptical about it, and essentially they were not very comfortable when it was brought first. But over a period of time, what kind of change have you seen?
Basically, what has happened, we've been celebrating the Amrut Kal, 75 years of, I would say, freedom. We became independent in 1947. And subsequent to that, basically, in the last 75 years, it's not that the policy did not exist. There was a policy, education policy. The emphasis was altogether different. Perhaps was more of making people more literate or providing basically access to education, right to education. That was. But we never thought of providing right education. So the IKS, somewhere basically you are trying to connect with your past. Why past basically? Because India in an ancient time also was a seat of excellence in education. We had Vikramshila, we had Takshashila, we had Nalanda, we had Pallavi. So many universities. Internationally, so many people from other side used to come and study over here. Then we started suffering with the invasions, sort of people from different parts of the world. They started invading and then military invasion, you can call it like. So the system got completely broken, sort of. And and the invasion was in series, sort of, the Mughals, and then obviously prior that so many, then the Britishers, then the Portuguese, then the French. And they actually tried to impose upon their own culture, their own things on us. So it became more or less a mixed kind of thing. And we were not given an opportunity to understand how India was in the past, sort of. It's just not like glorifying the past, but there are some good things that have also happened. If you look at basically the various sort of verticals of the Indian knowledge center, let that be agriculture, let that be astrophysics, let that be metallurgy. So during ancient time, even dam construction, the oldest dam that we have, which were constructed in Pallava's time, 2000 years before time, and it is still in existence, sort of. Or the watershed management kind of a concept. We are actually trying to reinvent the whole thing, but actually those kind of practices were in existence in the past, and therefore understanding what good things that happened during that Vedic mathematics, for example, making use of that, the position of 5 different planets was fixed. Now, with all advancement in computational facilities and all that, if you look at the distances during that time, those got measured and not moved by inch, not in decimal sort of. So that was the strength of basically the Vedic mathematics. Metallurgy, if you look at basically mixing of metals, what we call a panchadhatu. So to make a panchadhatu, basically you require 5 metals mixed up. So you must know the chemistry, what is basically at what temperature it melts, what is the pH condition that is required. So creation of coins, then some of the zinc, for example. Zinc was not known to the world. Zinc got extracted first in India, and not only extracted, the entire sort of a purification process was in place, sort of. If you look at basically the carving of various different temples or the caves that you look at, basically in Maharashtra, your Ajanta and Ellora. So the kind of marvels, those got created. So you had the necessary tools and you had the necessary knowledge of creating that kind of a thing. Then the other cave wherein the paintings are placed on the walls. So thousands of years those paintings are intact, sort of. So there has to be some kind of a treatment they must have provided, which perhaps is present in the Upanishads. So it's just not about religion. People actually, why people are skeptical? Because they started thinking that we are getting back into the Vedic period and all that. You will have to chant Vedas and all. Nothing of that. So some knowledge existing there. For example, Samveda. If you look at Samveda, the entire the music, all the gharana that we speak of, the origin lies in Samveda. So why not to study that and try to connect it with the present contemporary knowledge as well. History, for example. History we are not taught properly. History always have remained very Delhi-centric. Lodhis, Khiljis and Mughals. But beyond that, there were so many dynasties, I would call them, like Yadavas were there, Pallavas were there, Chalukyas were there, Cholas were there, Periyars, Vadiyars. In the northeast, you have so many. In Maharashtra, you have Yadavas, you have Rashtrakoot. Those are the times basically wherein the best of the creation happened in India. Whether it is in wool industry, whether it is in basically the carving that we see. So, those people actually have contributed immensely in the overall development of the ancient India. Whether let that be agriculture, let that be metallurgy and all that.
Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's naval power.
Yeah, absolutely. So somewhere we have lost connect with our history. And it's like what has happened, you can, generally we see a Delhi soap every day sort of. And in between we go on a vacation and in between we miss out some episode we forgot to watch. And when you come back, it becomes very difficult to connect, like to get connected with. So that is what exactly, perpetually some episodes are removed from the history.
Do you think that was deliberately done?
I would not call, I don't want to get into that controversy sort of. But it is, why not to have basically the best thing that happened during the past, why not to understand about them? And if they are useful, for example, Ayurveda. For example, these days even we speak about yoga. Is it not? So, when the 126 countries are following it, so obviously something good lies in that. Even Ayurveda also, we have a traditional knowledge system in that. Ayurveda is coming in the forefront. And these days we are speaking about integrated medication. So integration of what? Allopathy, then Ayurveda, Unani, homeopathy, everything. Because one side doesn't fit to all, is it not? So, depending upon my overall sort of a physiology, a particular medicine may not suit to me. So, I have to try out something. If allopathy doesn't suit me, maybe Ayurveda perhaps suits me sort of. So, why throw it away? There is sort of a power in it. To make use of it, and that is what has been followed through Ayush ministry. And therefore I feel like, yes, there are very good things that happen and we need to have a good connect with it, at least. And that's the reason what we have done. We are providing them a generic kind of a course. First of all, giving them introduced to basically the various different verticals of the Indian knowledge system. If they find it interesting, no one is stopping them to take a deep dive into it. You can. So,
Sir, have you seen any excitement or intriguing reactions from the faculty as well as the students when it comes to Indian knowledge system?
see, initially what you say is right. They were a little skeptical. But when I started personally, I always take that as a challenge. I started reading it. I started getting it. I, being a teacher, also didn't know much about it. So I took a deep dive, collected good amount of information, created best of videos sort of. Personally went to people, gave lectures on it, and then excitement began sort of. When I spoke about Aryabhatta, what is the contribution of Aryabhatta? What is the contribution of Brahmabhatta? What is the contribution of Varahamira in astronomy, in astrophysics? And then when I asked the pi value that you speak of was established 2000 years before time. So, what has been called as a pole geometry, what has been generally taught as a pole geometry in the other parts of the world. And we have forgotten what. With a pencil and a thread, you can create so many sort of a diagrams sort of. And those can be used for various different purposes, for creation of architecture, the right kind of a structure. So, once you start actually narrating them, how it happened, they started getting excited about it. And they started asking for, where can I read this? Where can I this? So I provided in a bibliography. These are the things. And some of them are in Sanskrit, but some of them are translated one also. And language is not a barrier altogether. So it is available in Marathi, it is available in your own local language. If it is not, then you must start working on it. Start getting converted to your own language. So don't miss it out. And then there is excitement. We had lots of workshops sort of. I started telling them like the watershed management that we speak of. Look at the Mohenjo-daro structures and all. The best of the hygiene was provided through basically a proper sort of a water channeling, water sort of a was provided almost to the every household sort of. I mean in enclosed sort of channels through. And then those kind of things when then started learning. And the same thing we are doing in today. So what is different? It's like we are reinventing the wheel sort of. People have already done it before time saying.
Sir, how do you see this, the Indian knowledge system impacting current Maharashtra? Because when we look at drought-prone regions in the state, and then we look at various agricultural challenges or other challenges, how do you see any such knowledge being used for addressing current issues?
Absolutely. Generally, during every year we celebrate Diwali. We just got over with it. Sort of. There's sort of a magazine they bring out. It's in Marathi called Diwali Ankur. So in that, last 2-3 years, I'm saying like there are episodes like which are the ancient water storages that are available and in what manner they were created, sort of. So people are writing stories about it like, and how they can be used today also like. And people have started accessing them. And then every aspect of it has been actually described. The kind of step well that you have in Gujarat. What was the need of creating such steps? Because water is basically to avoid contamination to a great extent. And basically at places like Gujarat and Rajasthan where the water tables are lower. So to have an approach and then keep them away from contamination, those kind of structures were created. So people started understanding the science behind it and the present utility of those structures. And that is what they are replicating it now in their own premises, sort of like what generally we call them like rainwater harvesting, especially the rain that we receive maybe in a scanty form on your rooftop, sort of. The rooftop, that water you collect, preserve it properly, sort of. So the people have started practicing it. Then even in agriculture, basically, rather than making use of the menace of fertilizer, sort of. So they are trying to get over with it, like making use of cow dung, this kind of mixtures.
So, do you see any support from the government when it comes to making, like, on policy basis, making these things accessible and available to the people so that they are able to use, say, natural fertilizers or any such methods?
See, the promotion of startup, that kind of a culture during this particular government that we have seen, that startup promotion, sort of.
Yeah.
So even the startup also, there is an incentive that has been provided to such best things, sort of, wherein you have blend of the old and the new sort of thing. And that's how you can see number of small companies are mushrooming in and around Pune, not necessarily in Pune, in Maharashtra. And then you can see basically the urea got replaced by neem. So the neem production has become on a very strong basis, sort of. Then making powders of the leaves, like, and preserve them, right from onions to this and that. So that kind of industry also gearing up, sort of. So there is a promotional activity that is happening, incentives being provided by the government, back mostly at the national level, but to support it, obviously, if not adequately, but some kind of support is coming from the state government.
When we talk about research and innovation, in the last decade, have you seen a change in focus of the government? Has the focus increased in this field?
Absolutely. See, I've been on the campus of the University of Pune for last 40 years. I joined this university in 1984. We are in 2024. So 40 years. That's a long time. And the kind of research that used to happen, I tell you, we are sitting in the premises of environmental science. We used to study the pollution of this river, that. But what is the solution? We never thought of providing any solution. So the same river, after 10 years, if you study it, the pollution level is going to be further high, sort of. Now somewhere over here, in the last 10-15 years, 10 years I would call it, like, we are to a great extent looking at providing solutions to the problem. So the research has become solution-oriented kind of thing. Okay. So you take up a river or a small stream, and then how do we actually arrest that kind of a pollution? And if it is a polluted, how to reclaim it back, like what different things that you can make use of to bring it to normalcy, sort of. Like, and this is what wonderfully been done in the other part of the world, like for Japan, for example. If you look at many of their rivers to a great extent, they are reclaimed, they virtually have brought it back to the natural sort of. So, and that takes almost 20-30 years and sort of. But somewhere the beginning is happening now in India. The research generally is of that nature that is happening, rather than doing a pure kind of research, pure science research. A research which is of societal importance, a research basically of societal use. So that I would say focus has changed. So the industry also come up with their problems, and those problems have become our research problem. Now, even the PhD problem, that if you look at, most of the problems are coming from the industry. And then we are trying to actually solve those problems with it's a collaborative sort of effort. Something coming from industry and something basically academic part coming from the academic sector, especially department. And that is how the focus can change.
Sir, Prime Minister Narendra Modi this year inaugurated the National Research Foundation. How do you see this step, this push by the government in establishing a foundation of this nature? What are your comments on this?
So basically, somewhere this is on a similar line like what the US has or what the European countries have. There is a national sort of research foundation, and through which the funds are provided. All this is what was happening. Every ministry was providing some kind of funds. And then, basically, for the sake of it, the fund used to go, and there is no kind of a sort of a mapping never happened. the utility, in what way it got utilized, and what is the outcome. So the measurable things were not there. Now what is going to happen, like, is you have only one sort of agency through which the research funds are going to get allocated. So the accountability basically to a great extent would be monitored. And then obviously the research funding that would be provided is not entirely coming from government. 50% of the funds, where normally it is expected that the industry would be partnering. So industry will not give money on charity basis, no? When industry is pouring money into it, so obviously there are expectations. So they need to have some problems resolved, sort of. So I think because of this kind of a collaborative effort, industry and the government, and that kind of a funds getting sort of a channel, I think there would be accountability, and there would be a measurable kind of a outcome. The focus is going to get changed considerably, and I think that should be the case, sort of. And therefore, I think creation of such national fund is going to be pivotal importance, I call it. Like, this is what has happened in the other parts of the world. In US, you have the National Science Foundation. There also the funds are accordingly allocated, sort of. And therefore, if you look at the kind of basically Nobel laureates, those get created there. And the Nobel, we never had, like, whatever number that we have, it's prior to the independence, when the facilities were minimal. Now the facilities are great, but despite that, I would call like a proper kind of research is not happening. So somewhere by creation of this kind of a foundation and funding, perhaps it would promote this kind of research activity.
Sir, Maharashtra aims to become a $1 trillion economy. India aims to become a $5 trillion economy. So considering these goals, what do you have to say about the educational sector playing its role? What role will the universities be playing, and how are universities going to contribute in this?
See, the most important part is basically the kind of curriculum that we follow. Many times so age old, like 20, 30 years, it's not been modified. There are no changes happen, sort of. Now, because of the multidisciplinarity, there is a need that is arisen that you have to involve the industry people. So whatever is going to be the requirement of the industry, that would automatically get reflected into the curriculum. Like things like AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation in the industry, perhaps. So those kind of things, and they are going to be of importance. The digital literacy, all those kind of things. So therefore, slowly there is a change happening. Every syllabus is getting modified accordingly. The major and minor, that kind of a system that been provided in the inbuilt in we have created a section and company, SPPU, Research Park Foundation. So wherein the startups are provided with space, industries coming basically to provide them funds, and the academics to a great extent provide them basically the required infrastructure, sort of. Like, if you intend to analyze certain things, those instruments are available, you can make use of them. So that kind of a partnership is happening, and therefore I believe to make this change happening from present state to a 3 trillion economy, it would not be all that difficult as because, and I can see it's happening because of my own campus. I can see it like every Saturday, Sunday, we have the big people like the CEOs of the automation industry coming onto the campus sort of. And obviously when they come with their problem, they come with money also. When you are resolving their issues, obviously they provide internship. So it's a win-win situation. The student get benefited, he gets an exposure, he understands what is happening, and he himself start realizing how redundant are the syllabus. And there he will start demanding, no, there has to be change over, because this is what the industry is demanding. This is what is presently happening.
Same is the case for semiconductor
Yes,
industries as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is making the students future ready.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. See, the NEP itself, let people criticize it, but I've been just not because of for a particular political reason I'm promoting, but I have taken a deep dive into it. And when I start basically looking back 30, 40 years before time when I was a student, I never got this opportunity. I wanted to be basically doing architecture along with performing arts. That kind of a situation wasn't there. And just because I couldn't get into engineering, accidentally I got into geology. I had no other option. But this is what not the scenario presently like. You can follow your own passion along with some added thing. So it's not going to be you are restricting yourself to only one particular discipline. You can follow your basically a career at the same time. I would say your likings, your passion for music, passion for something else. So that kind of a blend is possible. And this flexibility wasn't there 30, 40 years before time. So I personally get a little sort of envy that the student community, they're so fortunate to have this kind of a thing happen. Then secondly, once I get into Pune University, I had no other option, but I'll have to study everything throughout all my education from Pune University. Now there's a flexibility. There are some courses that are happening and are better taught sort of in JNU. I can go for those. The academic bank of credit, that kind of a vertical that has been provided. So few credits I can have from JNU or maybe from Delhi University or maybe some credits from basically a close by good engineering college sort of. So that kind of a sort of a give and take, that opportunity has been provided with the policy, which wasn't there like previously in Mumbai. There are plenty good colleges. So most of them, depending upon your own marks, you get admitted to. So like in Pune, Ferguson is rated to be the best college. Everyone is not going to get admitted to Ferguson. But now, doing my graduation from a nearby college, which is not as good as Ferguson, but I can have few courses from Ferguson College through this ABC, Academic Bank of Credit sort of. So that freedom is being provided. So it is a tailor-made kind of a degree. 50% of it basically you can have it from wherever you are studying. And if remaining 50% you can have it from anywhere.
Sir, what about the PM internship program?
On a similar line, in fact, because that was a big challenge. Basically, when this vertical in the education policy was talked about, like providing internship sort of. Internship, normally students expect that it should be a paid internship. Okay. Not all industries can provide you money. Okay. So somewhere some financial sort of this thing has to come. So central government also has provided, and recently the Maharashtra government also has provided some kind of internship as such, like 10,000, 5,000, all that. So some industries are coming forward with a paid internship. For remaining, obviously the PM program of internship as well as the Maharashtra government. So that kind of a match is happening sort of. And then basically what has been happening, because of the internship sort of, students are actually coming forward to go for an internship and to get exposed to for an on-job kind of training. So it's a very good thing that is, otherwise we were not actually, we used to maximum make a visit to industry. Beyond that, there wasn't much of a scope. Now,
Sir, the PM internship program, do you see this as a strong support to a student,
absolutely. Yes,
backing them?
absolutely.
I would want to ask you about the infrastructure development in Maharashtra. So, this is one state where infra boom has happened. How do you see this in terms of impacting accessibility to education, and also considering a number of new colleges and new even public institutions are coming up, public funded universities are coming up. So how do you see the infra boom has made life easier for students?
So the most important thing that got emphasized in the new education policy is increasing the gross enrollment ratio in higher education. So means basically not even 20 by 30. In state of Maharashtra, basically is a little progressive state. So 30% you can say the gross enrollment ratio, but still 70% of they are out of basically this whole thing. So to bring them into education, you require to have new, I would say, universities, new structures, new colleges, sort of. So there are a couple of things that are happening. First of all, one program that has been actually promoted is called as RUSA, is called Rashtriya Uchchatar Shikshana Abhiyan, which provides basically funding for both infrastructure as well as some academic programs also. This is especially good for these public state universities. Central universities are minimal in number. They are 36, 37 in number, and they get ample of money from central government. State run universities, basically beside the salary of the employee, state doesn't provide much, sort of. So the RUSA has come in sort of a helping hand in providing those funds, basically in creating a good infrastructure. Second thing, what is the promotion of autonomy in colleges? So once you establish your credentials, especially the NAC accreditation where you have scored A+, you straight away get complete autonomy. So 10 years of autonomy is being provided. So what do you mean by autonomy? Autonomy provides you an autonomy to basically create your own courses. Some of them could be aided, some of them could be unaided also. So self-supporting, wherein with a little, I would say, increase in fee, the same course you can provide it for the people who cannot afford. Those are also accommodated, and those people basically who can afford also been accommodated. So that kind of a win-win situation that's been happening because of the autonomy. Beside that, there's one more thing that has been happening, because wherein clustering of colleges and creating a clustered university. There's another sort of I would say a experiment that has been happening, and in state of Maharashtra there are a couple of such new universities which are called a clustered university. Like for example, in Satara, the Rayat Shikshana Samstha, which is a very old sort of and almost 100 years old education sort of system, and they have almost 70 odd colleges sort of. So all those colleges have come together and created a university structures.
Sir, so when we talk about connectivity in the state, when we talk about like in Pune itself, we have seen the metro network is being rapidly expanded, and also new lines have started. Same is the case with, say, a network of highways, and all of that is being developed. So how do you see, when you talk about the cluster of universities, the accessibility to these via the roads, railways, how do you see, has this improved in the last, say, a decade?
The metro actually means, I remember the discussion used to happen, say, 15, 20 years before time. I, being a geology person, was involved into it because this is a terrain where you have very hard kind of a rock. So drilling, breaking, tunneling, all those are very tedious kind of a process. But the only discussions happen. To get it materialized, it took so many years. Metro construction has begun in very recent times. So only 1 or 2 legs are completed. I am pretty sure that with the overall network getting completed, all the student community and everyone, not necessarily student, will have access to everything. And the student community would get benefited immensely, because from here you have an industry town close by, Pimpri-Chinchwad, where you have most of the industries. So even for in a education sector, for engineering, for example, in professional education, If I want to spend, say, 3 hours in industry, just because the distance is far up, I cannot make it to. But metro would provide that kind of access. Sort of. And therefore, I think after the completion of this complete networking, yes, the student community will get immensely benefited. And there would be more, I would say, sort of inclusion of the industry in the education sector. World over, if you look at the education campuses are generally seen located in industrial zone, sort of. Like you go to France, you go to look at the Stanford, you have basically Stanford University, and behind that in the backyard, you have the Silicon Valley. And that kind of a give and take generally happens, sort of. So that will start happening because of the good accessibility, because it takes about 20 minutes to reach to Pimpri-Chinchwad. So obviously once the access gets increased, I would say more kind of interaction would start happening between the industry and academy.
Sir, before we sign off, your final comments on the vision of Viksit Bharat and Viksit Maharashtra. How do you think this is going to pan out, and what role can the students play, and also the entire job creation that is happening now? Your final comments on this.
For any country, basically, to become a developed country, the most important pillar or backbone of it would be education. If the education is being provided in a right manner, that is what I said, just not right to education, providing them right education, which is a blend of everything, the industry, the society and all that. And that is what is happening because of the new education policy. In the state of Maharashtra, the implementation has begun recently. But in the years to come, I can see because this things have started happening. The industry, I can see an increased footprint of the industry people on the campus. And once they come, obviously, they themselves come along with that, come along with basically their demand, their requirements as such, to which the student get exposed. So obviously, the employability would get enhanced because they would be looking for solutions to their problem. The student on the other side getting exposed to the kind of problem they are facing. So it's a win-win situation for both. The internship is provided and then the student get retained in the same industry once he get that kind of experience. So it is a win-win situation for both the academics as well as the industry. So the job creation and then many new verticals are getting to a great extent promoted. For example, use of AI in virtually everything, whether it is medical, whether it is healthcare, whether it is the transport, whether it is monitoring of basically air quality and all. So with the technological advancement and exposure of the student community to that particular advancement, I'm pretty sure it would not be very far of a time to get India converted into a developed country, sort of. Yeah.
All right. Sir, thank you so much for your time. This has been a very insightful discussion.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
So that was all in today's episode of Viksit Bharat, Viksit Maharashtra podcast.